and the Brostor Biosphere Reserve. Welcome, Stan. Thank you so much for coming, and you have 5 minutes now to introduce your work.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Stan Johnson. As she was introduced, I'm from the Eskasoni First Nation in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. I work with the Breton Lakes Collaborative Environmental Planning Initiative. It's a unique organization. It started back in the early 70s when our elders noticed that the fish weren't spawning as they usually were. They noticed a lot of changes around the Breton Lake. The Breton Lake is actually an inland sea in Canada. It's about 3,500 square kilometers watershed, about 1,100 miles of coastline all around the area. The CEPI, the Breton Lake Collaborative Environmental Initiative, actually known as CEPI in our parts of the world here, was started back in the 70s when our chiefs and our elders, basically I was still saying, noticed that we were sufficient stuff for spots where they were. So they decided to do work together with all the organizations, the feds, the province, the municipalities, and the First Nations around the lake to work together and develop some type of plan of action to mitigate any damages that were happening on the lake and why were these changes happening. Now, what these elders were really experiencing at the time was climate change, which is to our people, climate change has always happened. We've been here for thousands of years, and we've just been adapting to climate change the whole time. So climate change might be newer to some people, but to the First Nation people in this country, it's been around for a long time. Anyway, when we talk about the CEPI here, it's made up of the four municipal governments. It's a unique organization. We had a conference back in 2003 where the chiefs met with the municipal leaders, the regional director generals, and deputy ministers on the lake here in Bedek. And basically what they talked about was what could they do with the worsening conditions of the lake and how could they be mitigated. In 2004, another workshop was held basically with this workshop here. This was held by the grassroots people around the lake, the scientists, the universities, and in 2005, the CEPI was born. Basically, all these groups got together and worked with a local organization here called the Unama'ki Institute of Natural Resources, UINR, which is made up of the 5 First Nation bands as the board of directors. They were tasked as the secretariat for the CEPI. So the CEPI is hosted by the Unama'ki Institute of Natural Resources. We do a lot of projects around the lake, a lot of scientific stuff. Our chairman for our board is actually Dan Christmas, who's a senator in Canada here. And Dan always says, like, at CEPI here, if it's not the organization, only one in Canada, probably not in the world, where you have 4 levels of government that sit down and talk about an issue like and this issue here for us is the Breton Lake. Basically, we all sit down together and then we talk about what we can do with the Breton Lake. So the 4 levels of government actually sit down and talk together and hash out what's going on, what kind of projects could be developed to help mitigate stuff going around the lake. The CEPI actually, we meet like once a month, the management committee, which is made up of one of the members of the municipal government, of the 4 levels of government. It's the management committee. Then we have a steering committee made up of university professors, scientists, or retired RDGs, our retired people working in the environmental field that work with our organization there. For us, it's really worked well. I said the senior council, which is made up of all of the regional director generals, the chiefs, the municipalities, the wardens, the regional director generals, they meet twice a year to go over the work plan of CEPI and the projects we'll be working on for this year. And so in our mantra, we work with everything. You might have heard about two-wide seeing, which is getting widely used around the world now. This was actually developed here in Eskasoni by an elder named Albert Marshall and Merdina Marshall, who actually looking at the world environment or the world as in two sets of eyes: the Western knowledge, which is the European concentric knowledge, where you take your scientific knowledge and all this stuff, and then you get your traditional environmental knowledge, which is made up from the First Nations people of the land, where we work these two knowledges together into one, basically weaving back and forth between the two to work projects together and have everybody involved. around the lake. So right now, CEPI is working on a few projects. We had a sustainable development conference a couple of years ago. We had Dr. David Suzuki as our keynote speaker, and we're working on initiatives around the lake that talk about sustainable development and we discussed 6 issues at the lake. That if developing any of these issues, you would harm the lake in some way or have an environmental effect on the lake. So renewable energy, mining, forestry, aquaculture, mining, renewable energy, and tourism. So we talked about those, and we developed task teams to work with those initiatives. And these task teams that we come from our senior council, come from the steering committee, and from the universities and the colleges in the area. We all work together as one. So that's the cool thing about the CEPI here. Is basically we all work together at the table. The two-eyed seeing concept is used throughout our work here. Everything we do is used with that lens. So that's what I'd like to share with our organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan, very much.